This is the Yorkshire Voice Newscast, brought to you by Leeds Trinity University.
Welcome to Yorkshire Voice Newscast. I'm your presenter, Abby Lord, and I'll be bringing you the latest news from across Yorkshire. On Sunday night at 7 p.m, a fire at the Marsden Moors was started. The blaze was a mile long and its peak had 10 fire engines with around 50 firefighters involved and 2 specialist wildlife units at the scene. Our reporter Bethan Case has more.
Crews from West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service are still working tirelessly at the fire on Marsden Moor. The latest update has said that there's 13 appliances from West Yorkshire Fire and 2 from Manchester are in attendance. They've been battling the blaze since Sunday night, and West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue are asking residents to keep doors and windows closed and to stay away from the area.
Last week, West Yorkshire Police launched a week-long operation aimed at targeting the theft of Catholic converters. 2021 has seen a sharp increase in reported theft, with West Yorkshire Police receiving 133 reports in March alone. The converters are targeted for the precious metal components within them, leaving victims having to fork out around £200 for the replacement. Chief Inspector Dan Wood hopes that the continued police work will send a warning to all criminals committing these crimes.
Hi, I'm Chief Inspector Dan Wood with an update for you about the theft of catalytic converters in West Yorkshire and what our police response has been. So recently, the value of precious metals within catalytic converters of vehicles has risen steeply, so they've become far more attractive for thieves to steal right across the country. We did see a sharp increase in this crime from the start of the year, with offenders often operating in a fairly organised way. Typically, they arrive in their own vehicle, they jack up the victim's vehicle, they cut off the catalytic converter from the exhaust, and then they make off with it. Obviously, this has had a big impact on the victims, who then can't use their vehicle and then may have expensive repair bills. So I want to just reassure people that we're really strongly pursuing these offenders. So we're policing the road networks, and we're really focusing on the vehicles they've been using to move around, which are often on false plates. We're also making sure that officers deploy to these crimes really soon after they happen and conducting thorough investigations. We've just also had a week of action in all our policing districts. We've had a wide range of measures taken, such as conducting partnership visits to scrap metal dealers like the one behind me today, to work with them and ensure they're not taking in any stolen material. April has seen a reduction in this crime, but we're not being complacent. We'll continue with the plans we have to tackle it, and I would encourage the public to report any suspicious activity like this they see, as this can be crucial to helping us prevent and detect this crime. Thank you.
Now, Noah Hoffman, a Yorkshire Voice reporter, spoke to Amy Asherden, a spokesperson from Just Like Us, who told Yorkshire Voice how allies can show support to lesbians who may be struggling at home and beyond.
This week is Lesbian Visibility Week, a time to show solidarity with all LGBTQI women and non-binary people, as well as to celebrate lesbians. Now, new research has revealed that lesbians are the most likely in the young LGBT community to face tension at home, feel lonely and isolated, and have deteriorating mental health. Independent research by the LGBT youth charity Just Like Us found that almost 87% of young lesbians have felt lonely and separated from the people they are closest to. This includes 6 in 10 who have felt this daily since the pandemic began. Now, in comparison, 46% of gay boys, 54% of young bisexual people, and 52% of young transgender people have described feeling lonely and separated on a daily basis. Now, when it comes to experiencing tension at home, 61% of young lesbians are experiencing this problem, compared to 54% of LGBT young people and 37% of non-LGBT young people. So I am joined now by Amy Asherden. She works for Just Like Us. Thank you for joining me, Amy. These are some interesting statistics, and I suppose the first question that comes to mind is what accounts for them? Why are young lesbians feeling more isolated and feeling more tension at home than other groups in the LGBT plus community?
Yeah, so Just Like Us is independent research of around 3,000 young people across the UK, around 1,000 of whom were LGBT plus, found that LGBT plus young people generally are disproportionately struggling with their mental health, but particularly young lesbians, like you say, we're they're really struggling with loneliness and facing tension at home. So that might be things like arguments with family, or fears over their safety in case they're sort of found out for being lesbian, or worries about coming out and that kind of friction. I think young lesbians, you know, we don't have much visibility as lesbians in the media. We're kind of either over-sexualized or fetishized, or we're overlooked or kind of disregarded. I think even the word lesbian is still quite a taboo these days. And I think there's a lot of shame that young lesbians still today go through around using that word to describe themselves, even though that is who they are. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, both at home with parents and also in school as well.
And what would that sort of work look like? What are the first sort of steps that can be taken perhaps on a government level or on a more local level to start bringing down these numbers of young lesbians feeling isolated at home and feeling these tensions with their families?
Yeah, it's a good question. And, you know, you say first steps, because I think, you know, we found in our research that half of pupils, so 48% of 11 to 18-year-olds said that their schools haven't given them any positive messaging about being LGBT plus in the past 12 months. So I think it is about taking that first step for a lot of schools. They can get involved in School Diversity Week. It's completely free, run by Just Like Us. We provide all the resources that you'll need. So that's like lesson plans. So whether you're teaching maths or science, we've got something that's inclusive. We've got posters, anything you might need really, whether you want to put on an assembly or whatever it is. So get involved, sign up for School Diversity Week. And it's a great way just to show that you support LGBT plus young people and that they can be safe at school. So I think kids just, you know, they just want to get on with their day, see their friends and learn. You know, they don't want to be worrying about all this stuff and whether people are going to judge them or, you know, bully them or etc.
And what about allies to the LGBT plus community and to lesbians in particular? If someone has a friend who is struggling with issues related to discrimination on the basis of being a lesbian, whether it's at home or at school, how can people who aren't lesbians be the best allies that they can be?
I think, you know, just to be aware that as lesbians, we are at an intersection of both sexism and homophobia. You know, we have kind of a double whammy of challenges really to navigate. And for butch lesbians like myself, you know, we might not conform to certain gender expectations. So we might look a bit different, and just kind of educating yourself on that and having a bit of understanding of the kind of what we might be having to navigate. I think it's easy or maybe convenient for us all to think that life has moved on a lot in 2021 and that it's easy to be LGBT plus these days, but it's absolutely not. There's still like so many people facing challenges. It's got easier for some people, which is amazing, but I think we've still got a long way to go. You know, often when I leave my flat, I get a lot of men staring at me. I have people call me dyke and shout at me in the street, and you know, it's just something I just have to get used to having to navigate, which it obviously shouldn't be the case. But I think, you know, when I often tell people about it, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that happens. So I think it's just about, you know, seeking out a bit of information and showing a willingness to learn and accept, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And Amy, how will you be celebrating Lesbian Visibility Week this year? Do you have any special plans?
Oh, good question. I wish there was more happening. It's kind of like pandemic life still, isn't it? So nothing like in real life that much, but definitely like, you know, talking about it online and, yeah, just trying to raise awareness of like positive things that people can do, you know, like School Diversity Week, etc. And just trying to raise some awareness, really.
That's great. Well, Amy, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. We really appreciate it. And you can visit the Just Like Us website to access some more resources, and wishing everyone a fantastic Lesbian Visibility Week.
Spotify want to be the industry's #1 distributor of podcasts and are willing to go head-to-head with Apple. Spotify announced that they will be launching their own paid podcast subscription service. This would allow aspiring podcasters to get their shows on the Spotify platform. The difference between the new Spotify subscription and Apple's subscription is that Spotify will allow their content creators to keep 100% of subscription fees compared to Apple's 70%. We will now talk to Darren Harper from LS11 Podcast. Hi, Darren.
Hey, Abby, how you going? All right.
Not too bad. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Sure. So LS11 is a Leeds United podcast. There are a few out there, obviously none as good as LS11. But we've been running for around about 3.5 years now, producing a weekly podcast about the comings and goings and the things that are happening in and around Elland Road.
Very nice. And where do you publish your podcast?
Probably easy to answer where we don't publish, but pretty much everywhere, because everybody's got their own way of listening to podcasts, so it's published everywhere. So as we always say, however you download your podcast, that's where you'll find us.
So this is being called the war between Spotify and Apple. Do you have a preference between Spotify and Apple?
Personally, I listen to my podcasts on Apple. I do have Spotify, but I've just used Apple Podcasts just right from word dot of when I started using Apple. Now, I suppose that's probably because I've got like Apple subscription. I've never subscribed to Spotify, so I've always had an Apple Music and everything Apple. So that's probably why. But so I don't. So that's how I listen to mine.
And considering that Spotify are now giving content creators 100% of the revenue, would you say that it's better to have more money coming for your podcast or better services?
I think this is it's really interesting, because I think there's most podcasters out there that have put a lot of effort and a lot of time into producing podcasts, and there's some amazing podcasts out there. Even on Apple at the moment, you've probably got 2 million separate podcast titles that you can go for. And most of them do it for nothing. Most of them do it because they love it. Most of them do it because they're passionate about a subject. So money has never really been the driver. Now, it's interesting because only certain podcasts really, if you're getting enough downloads, are able to probably like create normal amounts of advertising with sort of like if you're selling advertising yourself as a podcast, and you're doing like little reads within the podcast that you're selling to certain sponsors, which is what we've done in the LS7 podcast. But we also do get sort of other adverts that are put in. It's interesting, the sort of subscription based model that's come. This is not a new thing. This is not something that's happened in the last couple of weeks. There's been subscription podcasts for a number of years. And it came from America, very famous podcast over there, sort of Joe Rogan, started doing subscription podcasts. You'd pay $2 or $3 a month. You get exclusive content, but you'd still be able to get it for free a few days later. The great thing about this is, I think, is that quite a lot of other podcasters are going to be able to get money out of it. So whether or not you get 80, 90, 95% off of Apple, or whether you get 100% off of Spotify, half a slice of bread's better than no bread at all. So if you're not getting any money out of your podcast at the moment, this is only good news, I think, for podcasters.
Yeah, definitely. So do you think this battle between Apple and Spotify will have a negative impact on those using the platforms?
No, I don't think so, because people will always listen to their podcasts how they listen to them. You might be, might only listen to your podcast on Spotify. You might only listen to podcasts via YouTube. You might only like to watch your podcast if they're live streamed on Facebook. You might only want to listen to them on your smart speaker through Google. So everybody's got their own passion. Still now, Apple Podcasts is still the #1 way people are listening to podcasts. I don't think it's going to have a seismic difference in the way people are going to consume their podcasts at the moment. It may do. If people are being paid to listen to Spotify, but they're not going to do that because Spotify have just put their prices up. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah, very true. I got that notification through the other day.
Yeah, great news, isn't it?
Oh, brilliant. Looking forward to that coming out my bank account. Well, thank you very much, Darren. And make sure you listen to the LS11 podcast.
Yes, make sure you do.
And continuing the theme of podcasts, the popular podcast presented by comedian Chris Ramsey and his wife Rosie have recently added more dates to their Shag, Married, Annoyed tour. The tour will now start off in Leeds in the First Direct Arena. If you're looking for the perfect Christmas gift for the podcast enthusiast in your life, the show will take place on the 21st of December. Tickets will be available at 10 a.m. on the 30th of April. As pubs are now allowed back open, venues are getting busier. This is not only increases revenue, but also the workload on pub staff workers. Olivia Tansley speaks to Daniel Horsman, a landlord of Jacob's Wells in Bradford.
How long have you been working at the pub in Bradford?
So I've been working at the Jacob's Well for about 7 years, and I've been owner for the last 2.5.
Okay, thank you. So I'm to believe that you do quite a lot of steps each day. So, what are you doing to get such a high step count, and how much do you actually do?
Well, with the outdoor service, at the moment, we're having to run up and down to take orders, money, etc. So, in the first week especially, I was doing 15, 20 miles a day every day.
So how busy does it get now that the pubs have reopened, and are you taking walk-ins and book-ins or just one?
So we were doing incredibly well. I'm expecting that to change today with the weather.
Yeah.
But we're doing walk-ins, no bookings, and we should have plenty of space.
Okay, so leading on from that, what has it been like working under the new conditions and wearing face masks and visors for your shift?
We were wearing masks and visors before under the old rules. However, now we've also got the outdoor service complications, which just means a lot more effort from staff, a lot more movement, because customers can't come to us, and also even before when we were doing table service, that was all indoors in a relatively confined space. Whereas outdoors, even someone just outside the door is still quite a long way from the bar.
Right. So, how exactly did you adapt to the new lockdown easing with the outdoor seating? Did you have to get new tables, or was there already some there?
So we already had some tables. We've ordered some more, but unfortunately, due to demand at the moment, they're not going to arrive before the rules change again. There's been huge demand for outdoor seating, and it's sold out everywhere.
God, it's so busy, isn't it, at the moment with pubs?
Yeah.
So, are people, are your customers, are they being polite to yourself and your colleagues?
Oh, customers on the whole are being incredibly considerate and understanding about the difficulties we're facing as staff. We've had no real issues, and people have been prepared to wait that little bit longer than they would normally.
What is your standard waiting time now with food and drinks?
It can vary, but on a really busy night, we have had people waiting 5 minutes to get served, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
But mostly sort of adapted to it, ordered a bit earlier, and when they're only halfway down the pint and that kind of thing.
Tom Jones will be coming to Leeds this summer. The legendary performer will be at Brunel Social Club in Hyde Park to celebrate the launch of his new album, Surrounded by Time. The Welsh megastar will perform for 400 fans on August 31st. However, with coronavirus still making headlines, the show is still waiting to be confirmed, as the venue waits for the go-ahead in line with the COVID-19 restrictions. And if you were hoping to get tickets, keep an eye out for the resale, as concert was sold out in 8 minutes. It's not unusual to be loved by everyone to love Tom Jones. And finally for today, the weather with our reporter, Ricardo Trona.
Hi, Abby. I've got one positive news and one less positive news for today. So the positive news is that it's not as cold as it used to be in the last few weeks. The less positive news is that there's no sign of the sun we all enjoyed last weekend. I have to say, as an Italian, I'm particularly missing myself. When it comes to the weather for today, quite surprising around here, it is going to be mostly cloudy, with rain showers moving west across the region. Some of these showers will be heavy and slow moving. As for the night, there's going to be lows of 4 degrees and rain is forecast to fall, even though it's going to become patchy as we get into late night. That is all for the weather for now, and let's get back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. That's it for Yorkshire Voice Newscast. We hope you've enjoyed taking a closer look at some of today's news stories with us. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. But until then, goodbye from us.
This is Leeds Trinity University.